Hey there, welcome to episode 86 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. Episode 86 already, amazing. Today we are recording this on the 8th of October, Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. It's just after 9 a.m. I was going to say 9:09 because that's what it really is, but does that matter? It's about 9 o'clock in the morning on this lovely day. It looks like the weather might be beginning a turn. It's too hot. It's still summer. No, it's not. It's the desert. Our summer was much hotter, but it's still hitting 100 degrees in early October. That's not right. Anyway, today is going to be a brief episode. This is a busy week. Mobile World Congress is here in Vegas. One of the nice upsides, I guess. One of the nice things about Vegas, if you are so inclined. A lot of trade shows. Part of the fun economy does include conventions, trade shows, other such things. So Mobile World Congress Las Vegas, I have to be honest, it's not a great show, but it's only the third year. So we'll see. It starts today. We'll see what happens. Anyway, today's episode, again, hopefully brief, hopefully maybe 30-ish minutes. We'll see. Sights and sounds. Do note that it's SITES, not SIGHTS. We're talking about websites, the internets. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you have been able to find the episode description, which contains show notes. In the show notes, you will find a brief summary, which I will read to you, and then the links for today's episode. They're pretty much the usual. I've added 2 self-referential links, which we'll get to in a moment. The Innovate for Vegas Foundation, if you've not heard, we're certainly talk of the town, is indeed a 501c3 public charity, a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We focus on community elevation through civic volunteerism. You may think, oh, so like writing code, but ideally, as an inclusive organization, you do not need to be a coder to be a part of the place you live or beyond. None of our projects are really Vegas focused. Vegas does have its own take on things. If there's a particular variation, we can begin with the core notions, our initiatives, and we can build custom or like more specific. Yeah, there you go. There's the word. Versions. The nature of projects in a civic volunteer world could be educational from the standpoint of building things that are not one-offs, but building things that can last and can be sustainable, used by others. The volunteer pool in the world is not necessarily growing at a substantial rate, so making the best use of that time seems like a good idea. So collaboration and so on, we'll get to that in a moment. Pardon me. So let's get on with the episode. The show notes. Summary for today's episode. At long last, our website is near the top of our to-do list. That has been a long trek, and what we want to do with this audio program and more. That was quick. The links for today's episode, our website, innovateforvegas.org. That's FOR, Innovate for Vegas, no space dash, just Innovate for Vegas, all one word, .org. That's our main website. It is, which I'll get to in a moment, it is now in a different location. That doesn't matter on the web, just if you're hosting and publishing. So the first step towards actually making a maintainable and integrated part of our various online initiatives and then whatever comes after that. Our GitHub organization, github.com/innovateforvegas, same thing, Innovate FOR Vegas, all one word. You can go there and see, still getting a little reorg going. So as of today, there are overview projects, which are a part of the basically project management of initiatives. So the overview project is a component of an initiative. And now that's something, if you want to read about Agile for Volunteers and how that all works, then that's going to be a different topic altogether another time. But in the meantime, if you do visit our GitHub organization, if you are not familiar with GitHub, it's okay. It's just a website. It will not bite. We have Project Act on GitHub. Project Act, that's project-ACT, as in Autonomous Cohort Tessellation. We do have our separate GitHub organization for that, and thanks to GitHub for making this a charity gratis version or gratis deployment of GitHub Teams, so we get various additional features at no cost. So thanks for that, Microsoft and GitHub. Project Act will hopefully include others in a collaborative effort to increase the reach and level of collaboration and at least communication, the three big C words: connect, communicate, collaborate. And then there is another component of Project Act, since we're not going to talk about it too much today, the autonomous cohort transformation, which is, I think, still, we conceived of this idea long before Code for America decided to sunset the Brigade program. The notion was to help groups, cohorts, to transform into independent entities if they wanted to behave as such. So since the Brigade underpinnings disappeared, much like a rug might be pulled from beneath one's feet, one would think, well, the transformation's not really essential, but but still, tessellation. But something else to think about is transforming from one or two or three people who have an idea for their communities. The number of brigades dropped precipitously once the Brigade program did the same. So there may be a time for a renaissance, and transforming from a loose-knit collection of people into a functional and productive cohort of people, of individuals who can collaborate with others, who can advance community elevation activities, projects, initiatives, and so on. So a lot of stuff going on there. So hopefully that will get some life. Still very much work in progress. However, projectact.info, project-act.info is the first did I say first? Foreshadowing. Is the website that, as I'm speaking right now, is not up yet, but it's going to follow the same path as our innovateforvegas.org, which I will talk about in the first item in today's episode. Projectact.info will be sort of a tessellation member or participant, I guess, portal. So if you're an autonomous cohort and you have a little icon somewhere, and if you're working on initiatives or projects and those have little icons, Project Act, the tessellation, the autonomous cohort tessellation, is literally, a tessellation is a mosaic also. So a tessellation of cohorts, where they are, and a little logo, and projects, initiatives, projects, activities. This will help make all of these more discoverable and a place to point, since there's no longer a slide presentation of brigades and projects. So this sort of takes the place of a directory or catalog of civic volunteer projects. I will point out later in this episode that Project Act is not necessarily only for civic volunteer activities. Agileforvolunteers.org. That's all one word, also spelled out, F-O-R, so agile, A-G-I-L-E, for volunteers.org. That hopefully will be self-explanatory, but it, as of this moment, as I'm speaking, not up yet, but that it will be. We'll at least get a coming soon page, hopefully today. I mean, luckily it doesn't take that long. It takes long to put good content up, which is why the innovateforvegas.org will also need a makeover now that it's moved. But let's get to that. We migrated to GitHub Pages. Our main site was not doing much in our, there's a free tier of Amazon Web Services. Once that expires, you're like, oh, wow, free was a better deal. So we were not making use of it. Eventually, if there's interest, we can have like a mailing list, or when we do deploy our Mastodon instance or project sandboxes, it's sort of like demo versions of things. So there will be a need for Amazon Web Services or Azure, depending on how you like to pronounce it, or even less likely Google Cloud, Google Compute Platform. Is that what they call it? Yeah. So we'll make more use of running code and dynamic content and whatnot. But for the moment, there was really no need for that. The one pager that we had sitting forever was really so that for the purposes of our filing our IRS determination, or our, whatever, 1023 for the IRS determination of our nonprofit status, which happened a long time ago, providing a basic landing page for people to find out more information about us, for the purposes of sponsor and fundraising. Hey, here's more information about the entity to which you might donate some money. And like an authoritative point of presence so that you could see our gathering calendar, quick list of projects, and so on. So it served a purpose, but it is no longer, it was just a separate part of life. And we don't have a web content manager, a website developer, a brand manager. We don't have these people in these roles to do these things, like kind of it's not a full-time job by any means, but just to keep an eye on, hey, we got to update this, we got to change that. This is like, it'd be cool to have color schemes that match holidays or match events and things. So topical announcements, things like that. So there will be some evolution of our content for our main website. So the page is as it was with some very minor updates. We added our new board member, Sean Dean. Sean Looker is a director emeritus. So our 3 directors, myself, Mary, and Sean Dean, and then Sean Looker, director emeritus, are on there. I'm using the GitHub profile pictures instead of LinkedIn profile pictures. So they will look as they look. And the content is mostly static. We do link to our Google Calendar for our gatherings agenda, which includes our office hours. It probably would have included hackathon meetups if we still were doing those, but they could return. You never know. And this very audio program appears as an embedded Spotify widget. So you can play this episode right on the website through your browser if you really want to. If you want to, I don't know. These are nice, though we can do better. Especially with the calendars, because we do have our smart calendar component of our smart social initiative. So we'll see what happens with that, but let's save that for another time. For now, we are better positioned to not only integrate our main site with our actual initiatives, since all of these exist in large part on GitHub, thanks for our gratis Teams account, Microsoft and GitHub, but to automate this integration to maintain a current web presence. So since all these GitHub repositories essentially can all have the same sort of static content that we can generate automatically, we can pull in different pieces of content very easily across the different repositories. We don't have to worry about shipping content to other platforms and so on. So to maintain a current collection of stats and participation, like who's part of this initiative and who's working on stuff. So just to be more transparent about effort, to make it easier to attribute effort to those giving it. Not everybody's a fan of GitHub. So like GitHub is sometimes one of those keep out zones for people. So a normal website that can present the same exact information will be useful. And this will be a nice segue into the content that will be on projectact.info, which I'll get to towards the end, and even Agile for Volunteers. These tools that GitHub offers to maintain these static sites that can pull in content from the different repositories will make it pretty straightforward to connect the tools that we need for Agile for Volunteers, some minor tools for repository management, and some other stuff. And that list of stuff may grow. Project Act, we need some tools. Actually, we have those kind of spec'd out in our Blue Sky overview. So the different things that we need to get us started, we have a couple of the planning elements in our issue tree. So those things are normally like, I don't use GitHub, so I'll never see those. So making a more casual human friendly version of these pieces of content that will make our efforts more visible to more people is part of the goal. So a nice, instead of saying, oh, go to GitHub or agileforvolunteers.github.io, or go to, which I've done before, go to github.com/innovateforvegas/doc-agile. Those become less user-friendly and more developer-friendly, and we need to do both. So there you go. The automation of static page generation on GitHub, by the way, Jekyll, kind of a mess. That's their default tool. I've been looking at some different possibilities. Pelican, 11T, 11ty, 11T. So a Python tool, a JavaScript tool. I think as something of an experiment, right now the page that we have is on innovateforvegas.org is one static HTML page. So nothing to do there, embedded JavaScript widgets. Those just work for the moment. So ideally, generating pages will work as needed. And I'm finding in my explorations of these different kind of canned tools, which are like, here's a collection of things that do what we think you might need to do. That can always lead to trouble. That's the Jekyll problem, right? Oh, you got to install these plugins and it doesn't really work and it's kind of old the way things, this and that. So you're basically waiting on some other infrastructure, canned software, continuing development and addressing. Well, generation of static web pages is not building rockets or any such thing. So I'm toying with the idea of toying with Toil. Toil is a Python-based tool. It's built for automating pipelines. Kind of like GitHub Actions, if you're familiar, but this would be a collection of actions that could happen using completely standard tools like Common Workflow Language and Workflow Description Language, so CWL and WDL. What are those? Well, one is, they're both for our workflow. They're for describing workflows that can take place across multiple steps, manipulating files and other such things. So why should we bind ourselves to, you must use a JavaScript platform to do this, or you must use a Pelican, and here's the templates and the layouts, and it supports this directory, and you need this plugin, and you need, there's a place for those, but it may also be interesting to become more familiar with process automation, workflow tools. These are standards that exist across tools. So a Toil being Python based, there may be other tools in other languages or other ways to integrate. I believe, what's the OpenStack uses TaskFlow, I think, and they support one or both of those description or workflow languages as well. So I think I'd have to flip through the old docs there, but either way, rather than committing completely to a framework to build static content, you can actually commit to a methodology, which is to execute completely standard workflow tools to call on modular components. Those modular components could be in any of a variety of languages or anything. So basically maintaining flexibility and also a bit of a learning experience to see who wants to become involved with workflows. So not merely building a static web page or website, but actually becoming more familiar with how automation of anything can be made more easier, using tools built to do just that. So can you use a static site generator to automate other things? Probably not. Can you use a starting point like Toil? That's Toil, Toil. Toil is maintained by a biotech entity of some sort. I'm not looking at the page right now. I'll do a whole episode on this once it gets up and running. Toil is already running, by the way. So they use it for lab data automation, things like this. So your automation workflow, if done using standard tools can call on specialized tools if needed. But if you can get 90%, 80 at least, Pareto, 80% of your tools to do what you need to do without having to write new things, if you can just automate using components that work rather than trying to find an entire framework or system that works, then that might be useful. So a couple things to learn along that path. I won't say we can always revert back to a framework if that doesn't work out. Fearless coding is another topic for another time, which I may have covered briefly, but it bears repeating. The energy, the motivation, the comfort, the desire. I don't know. Pick your favorite word to experiment. Don't feel as though you must use the tools presented to you, or you must follow the crowd and do what everybody else is doing. Getting back to dynamic also. So I've just mentioned how we're going with static. Static websites are you build the page once, so you're not loading a page, waiting for a database to pull a bunch of data together to build dynamic pages and widgets and all that stuff. So the widgets that are on there, if you load our innovateforvegas.org homepage, you will see that the page comes up pretty quickly, and then the widgets have to render. So the Spotify widget is downloading some data from Spotify and rendering or drawing the images and the color background and implementing the play tool so you can actually play the stream in your browser, the audio stream. The calendar widget's doing something similar, so it has to pull all the calendar data and whatnot, and that's fine. That's how the internet works. But if your entire page is generated like this, then that can just slow things down. It's just extra work, extra ways things can go wrong. So a static page or a page of content that is mostly static will load faster, and it will have different areas that will load when they can, but your visitor will have something to look at rather than waiting on a blank screen. So load time is important. People got things to do. But we're also going to get back to dynamic in general. So we're not just doing static content. There will be substantial need to have code running and more interesting things to see and do, more useful information to retrieve, and so on. All of our projects do involve, drawing maps and putting data on the maps. The Smart Calendar project I referred to is about standard calendars and doing more interesting things with them than you can do with Google Calendar or Outlook or Yahoo. The nice thing is by using standards, you can interoperate. But if you can do things, I'll give you one example. I would like to seamlessly add two calendars together. Now, you can say, I would like to include another calendar in my calendar. You can basically subscribe to a calendar. Subscribing to calendars, good thing. Love it. However, these are both my calendars. So from I'd like to publish these two calendars really quickly. I don't want to have to create a merge calendar. I don't want to have to import or subscribe from one to the other, because I maintain all these calendars. So now you'll start to see, I have two calendars, and now one calendar appears in the second calendar. So that becomes kind of messy, kind of defeats the purpose of having the separate calendars. In this case, I'm talking about our board meetings, our gatherings, like our office hours. We had a separate hackathon calendar. So clearly hackathons and gatherings might be interesting to merge, but maybe not always. So what to do? Well, calendars are really just streams of data, iCalendar streams. So there's really nothing preventing you from merging them, right? You should just be able to add the files together. And that's oversimplifying. But I should be able to say, okay, I have a calendar and another calendar, and I can render I can draw it, or I can construct a table, or I can do things with these calendars and merge them together by date, for example. So if I have our board meeting calendar and our gatherings calendar, our board meetings are during our office hours on the fourth Thursday, one of those. That's why it's on the calendar. But our board meeting calendar is not public. There's no reason it shouldn't be, because the meetings are public. So now I have to add the two calendars together. And again, it defeats the purpose to embed one calendar in another. I would like to simply say, hey, I'd like to display these two calendars merged. Maybe I could do that with other calendars. I'd like to merge our office hours calendar with the office hours calendars of different organizations, and we can see if there's look at these different places that I can go and learn more about civic volunteerism. One-stop shop, right? We could put that on the projectact.info website, for example. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done. So having a dynamic code executing platform, a playground of sorts, is still most definitely in the plans, in the pathway, but there's no reason to host one static page on AWS infrastructure. That was an interesting idea, and then it became like, Why are we doing this? And then Google Pages, they're okay, but still problematic. Google GitHub Pages are much more flexible as far as connecting with our existing infrastructure, our initiatives, and our various repositories and so on. So generally easier, but not the end, merely the beginning of the beginning. I mentioned the calendar widget many times. Well, our needs. The calendar widget from Google is minimally useful. You can display a traditional calendar, which I found to be kind of a waste since we only have the one weekly event on there. But hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could merge calendars at the web side, on the client side? I should be able to render a widget that has 10 different calendars added together, because that's 10 text. No, well, I don't know what the code is doing for Google, but I should be able to pull down 10, however many iCalendar streams of calendars with different events. I should be able to construct a calendar view, adding all those together, and you'd end up with a calendar with multiple. This is what happens on your client anyway. If you have calendar subscriptions and you're adding calendars together. So we should be able to do this on the widget side for public facing calendars. And it's probably doable, but it's something that motivates the Smart Calendar project. So the widget that's on there is a little bit too basic. It's kind of a disappointment. It's not totally flexible, what you display there. So our Smart Calendar needs to make an appearance once we get that component moving again. Our audio programs need to appear in a useful way as well. And while Spotify is okay, it is merely okay. Like, I would like to display a widget that you can play previous episodes, and those exist as well. But we don't want to really rely on Spotify. We're too reliant on Spotify right now. They are the first point of publication, so we really should host our own audio. We should host our own media and then use Spotify as a secondary. They have different distribution endpoints that they work with directly and indirectly, but it's one tool. We are putting too much effort into using one tool that could go away. Who knows if Spotify decides to shut down? We'd be lost. We'd be lost without GitHub as well, but Spotify is on thinner ice at this point based on their business model. I did make that plural. I did say audio programs. Our audio programs need to appear in useful ways. That's audio programs with an S, because there are a couple more things coming, and maybe not all audio, so we'll see. So just a more flexible way of presenting programs like this and more. So let's talk about content. Content is a horrible word. It sounds very generic and sterile. Static site pages are minimally viable if you like, but keeping it dynamic, whether it's the words on a page or audio program or initiative and project meetups on a calendar, or office hours also on the calendar, a different calendar, but merged, or any number of other possibilities with map data, visualizations, other audio. Certainly accessibility is a critical issue, so pages should be readable by page readers, and the list goes on. Remember our community panel? Probably not. I think the first one was actually, I think we had about 2 or 3 people show up. It was virtual. It's like a Zoom call. And after that, it was crickets, so nobody was really interested. Part of the problem is getting the word out so that people they have any idea that such a thing is on the table. Hopefully this will help with engagement with the general population, and then any aspiring or even nascent civic volunteers who are on the precipice. I'm ready now. Aspiring, maybe like, oh, I didn't know this was a possibility. Nascent is something like, oh, I was part of Hack for Reno, or any number of other of the former brigades that have shut down. So people that are already kind of in the mindset and would like to participate, but for discovering where there might be a place to join. So engaging with people, the community panel should be brought back, but being discoverable is one of the challenges. So better calendar, it all starts to fit together. Interaction with our neighbors and locals is basically the goal, and then those potential. And when I say join, that's with a small j, like one of our goals is to enable a looser method of engagement with volunteers. So yes, you can join the GitHub organization. You can participate externally. You can just do pull requests, which is part of the GitHub flow. So yeah, there are a number of ways. We're not about silos are problems. So if we can make better use of our web tools and static and dynamic content and some of the very projects we're working on, initiatives, the Smart Calendar is a project of the Smart Social Initiative to keep our vocabulary consistent. Yeah, we should be able to engage with people, and not merely in the Greater Vegas. What are the boundaries of Greater Vegas anyway? Even people that live here are never really sure where they are. I think it's the city of Las Vegas actually has an application running on the ArcGIS platform where they host their open data, and it's something like "Am I in Vegas?" and it uses your map location to tell you whether you're in the city boundaries of the city of Las Vegas. The effort to rename Clark County to Vegas County will probably only add to the confusion, but reduce the need to be curious. Really, am I in Vegas? I guess so. Well, you seem to be mostly right. As our initiatives take shape and as they become functional, our dynamic side can host running versions. If these are code or other virtual implementations, in some cases there will be tangible components that do not live on a web server. Ideally, not everything is code, but if we do have those, they can run on a web server, and they can be dynamic applications that can be like local versions or one-offs. All of our projects so far are not based on collaboration with like a partner, so all of them would be viable to run in like a demo mode or to be deployed, or both, ideally deployed in other locations as well. So they are city centric. They are intended to be about some locality, but there's no reason that it couldn't be, at any project couldn't be deployed elsewhere. So those are things that we can actually go into more detail about on our website now that we have our whole publishing possibilities that much easier. Not that being on Amazon Web Services was difficult necessarily, but yeah, there was no need for that to host one page. That was silly. Too many hats. So next steps, our Agile for Volunteers initiative, which began as a part of our normal infrastructure for this foundation. It was a page in our sort of how-to, like, hey, you want to be a part of our foundation? Here's our .org how-tos repository, which was probably off-putting. There's a lot of text. We need some illustrations, some workflow diagrams or something to maybe break that up a little bit. There's a lot of reading though. So, but the Agile for Volunteers element was basically a big page. Now it has become multiple pages. It has become GitHub issue templates and discussion templates and pull request templates. When I say templates, forms for the issues and discussions. GitHub needs to get some of this stuff sorted. So we have starter forms, documentation, and a workflow for GitHub, and maybe eventually GitLab and other platforms if they have anything like these features. And this is really a great concept for its own audio program, or maybe video discussion. We'll see. So the agileforvolunteers.org website is a viable thing to pursue, and it will be kind of a front to, like, we can have projects exist there as deployable tools. We can deploy the documentation for Agile for Volunteers there that we can generate from the markdown sources and other such tools. So agileforvolunteers.org will begin life as a kind of a front end to this collection of tools and documentation and methodology, and then ideally to some interactive content like audio, like its own audio program, something like that. Project Act is going to get its own website. It already has its own organization, like I said, on GitHub. So we'll have our own website to provide a gateway for individuals and cohorts looking for connection, communication, and collaboration, the 3 C's, on open projects. Now, do you need to be a civic volunteer? No, not really. No specific need to be a civic volunteer to participate in Project Act. In fact, you don't really sign up. That's part of I think the upside. You don't you can join the Project Act organization if you want to be a part of the development and general upkeep of the Notion. Project Act will require some code to run for the spider and the catalog for projects. But generally speaking, if you are an individual or a cohort, you want to be a part of the Project Act tessellation, which is a graph of all of these things. You join the graph. Friend of a friend, description of a project, describe how you are connected to others, other cohorts, other individuals. The spider, the web spider will come along and pick up, a new person is added to this other person's friend of a friend network. FOAF and dope files are very similar in concept to RSS feeds. So not rocket science, and you don't have to ask. You can just publish your FOAF. And if you can add yourself to someone else's and you can add people to yours, you become part of this decentralized graph. So no need to sign up, no need to formally become part of some structured organization. You don't have to pass any test as long as you can publish that file, which is an opt-in step. So if somebody says, I don't know, I don't want to do that, well, you don't even need to use GitHub. You can put this file on any website, just like an RSS feed. So this will be part of the maintenance of Project Act, is to make it easy for people to jump in here. If you're a language translator, if you are a graphic illustrator, if you are mechanical, if you dabble in physical creative work, right? Mechanical engineer, maybe you're just not just, but either you're an engineer or maybe you're more creative, less strict like engineers. But creative physical work, sculpting, building mechanical things, there's really no need to limit to software. So Project Act is about connecting people, whether they are connecting around civic volunteer software projects, civic volunteer anything projects, which is our goal, or maybe, for example, if you're participating in Hacktoberfest. Hacktoberfest only works with GitHub and GitLab. And to find a project in GitHub, there's 139,000, just under 140,000 projects to search through. So part of the upside of building a catalog and then making it searchable would be to integrate the catalog with some ML tools, machine learning, to summarize, to make finding things that you're interested in working on more a matter of conversational querying rather than keywords and so on. So big plans for Project Act, and then there will be there will need to be a reason to focus some effort on putting the word out that, hey, people are doing cool things and nobody knows about it. So there might even be a second website aligned with the Project Act effort, which we will we'll talk about. We'll talk about that later, because that is the actual plan. I didn't just make that up. Really, though, we need to get the word out, engage with the population, and advance our various initiatives. Maybe look for additional possibilities. So the list of initiatives we have at the moment might not be the only initiatives that we can pursue. And they're never really done, which is also interesting. If you do it right, the things you develop will always be interesting, and there will always be opportunities to continue development. So there will always be opportunities for those interested in volunteering their time for the greater good to be a part of all of these things. And making that clear, making that discoverable, making ways for those that are curious and interested to actually engage and participate are always evolving processes, methods, outreach, messaging, all that. So that is where we're going to leave it. I think we're coming in around 40 minutes, so that's good. I tend to have a lot more to say. One of these days, and I would love to have guests again. Would love to return to the notion of having guest participation. So we'll see if we can get that up and running again, having actual people participate in these audio programs or other content. So we'll see. Time is always ticking, as it is at this very moment. But for the purposes of this podcast, the clock stops now.